This video is sponsored by Squarespace. As some of you may know, lately I have been painting a lot outside of the house. In order to facilitate this, I have been slowly building up what I like to call my ultimate portable painting kit. So today I'd like to take you through the whole process of building up this kit, the intention behind each item that I've included, and how I actually use this thing on the go. But before we go any further, you should know that some of the items in this kit were provided free as review copies. So in order to help you out, I'm going to be providing these little labels down in the corner of the screen so that you can tell exactly what my bias is towards any of these products or any of these companies. And if you'd like further information about my relationship with any of these companies, I promise I'm not being paid to promote any of them. Please feel free to go and check out my website, where I made a blog post further detailing any and all biases I might have towards hobby products. And with all that said, let's get started. When building a portable hobby kit, there is a lot to take into account. Where do you want to use it? Are you looking for just a portable setup you can use around the house? Or is this something you want to take to a friend's house or maybe a local game store? Do you want to include just paints and a palette, or assembly tools as well? Maybe even room to bring along a kill team and some rules cards in case a game breaks out. Believe me, I get the impulse to overplan this stuff, but it is my recommendation that you just start with something as simple as a cardboard box, maybe a plastic container if you want to get fancy, and start using the thing before you make a commitment to any large purchases. There are, of course, all kinds of specialized kits and boxes that we could use, and we will get into one of those later. But when building any sort of toolbox or kit, it is my recommendation to always start with the basics, and then through using it, you'll learn what stuff you don't need and what stuff you do need, what upgrades you might want to make. And personally, after testing this stuff out for quite a while, adding things and removing things, here is what my list of essentials started to look like. A small cutting mat to work and paint on top of, an X-Acto knife, clippers, super glue, and plastic cement for assembly, a hummus container or similar plastic container that can work as both a paint palette as well as a water receptacle, as well as a few of these cheap medicine cups that I covered in my previous video for mixing paints or for things like speed paints where I want a sort of well palette. Beyond this, I like to include a folded paper towel as well as one or two spares for cleaning my brushes or cleaning up any assembly messes I might have, 2 to 3 paint brushes, and in general, I like to include at least one good one cheap one, and one dry brush. I also like to include a painting handle. Here I have the red grass one, but whichever one you like to use will work fine, as well as some of this Faber-Castell putty for holding models on the handle, as well as for doing any model sub-assemblies. Next, I found I like to bring along some sort of a portable light source. You can use something like this portable worm light that's designed for being clipped onto a book to read at night, as well as a charger for this portable light. There are definitely better portable lights you can get, but we're going to get into that near the end of the video when we start talking about the more fancy things I added to the kit. I also like to include a small notebook and a pencil for jotting down any ideas I might have or any color recipes I have as I work. As far as paints go, it's really up to you, and I found my list of paints that I brought with me really varied quite a lot depending on the project I was working on. But here is a list of 14 essential colors I could never leave home without, as well as an additional 5 colors if I have the extra space. My favorite red, a really dark black, a warm off-white, a bright primary blue and green, a blue-green, a very saturated purple and magenta, a bright yellow, a dark red-brown, a lighter orange-brown, a silver and gold metallic, as well as some sort of glaze medium or thinner. Beyond this, if I have the additional space, I like to include these 5 paints, as well as any specific colors for the projects I'm currently working on. And speaking of the models I'm currently working on, I usually like to include these inside a separate metal cookie tin, and I like to magnetize the bottoms of them so they don't get damaged during travel. I like to include 1 or 2 different projects that I'm working on so I have some options to switch between projects, but I also like to include some primed spare models that I can just use for painting practice or just to take a break from any of my big projects. I also started keeping a small basing materials container inside of my kit. I put this into a smaller container. This is actually the insert from a Warcrow blister pack, and it includes aquarium sand, a small amount of tiles in multiple sizes clipped from evergreen polystyrene sheets. I also like to include some spare foil from pill containers or whatever else that I might use on the specific project that I'm basing at the time. I also like to include my wet palette alongside all this stuff as a separate module. This one is airtight, so I can just bring it alongside the other stuff if I want to. And that's about it. That is the portable kit that I used for several months before I bought any major upgrades. However, I eventually wanted to start getting more deluxe upgrades for this kit, so that's what the rest of this video is going to be about, all of the specialized products and extra things that I added to my kit to make it what I like to call my ultimate portable painting kit. And for my first major upgrade, I of course wanted some sort of a specialized case or box or toolbox or container to keep it all in. I'm a sucker for things like that, and there's a ton of options available when it comes to miniature painting. I at first considered some sort of a toolbox or tackle box or a makeup kit. There's a lot of good options in those arenas. And I also even considered the fancy Frontier Wargaming portable kit or any of these similar MDF or 3D printed ones on Etsy. There's a lot of great options out there, but this is the one that I ended up going with. The Hobby Zone Portable Painting Station. Now, full transparency, like I said at the beginning of the video, some of the things in this video were sent to me free as review copies, and this is one of them. This case with all the extra add-ons they sent me costs about $200 USD total, so there is a decent amount of bias here, but at the same time, I am not being paid to promote this thing, and I'm under no obligation to give this thing a positive review. But do you know who I am being paid to promote? That's right, it's this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website and hosting platform designed to help you make the most deluxe website of your dreams. And whether you choose to start with one of their designer templates or use their design intelligence system to build yourself a custom template, you can easily have a website up and running within 30 minutes or less. But why stop there? As it's super easy to customize your site using tons of different built-in modules that you can drag and drop or style options to change up the colors, fonts, and anything else you can imagine. I've been using my current site over at howlcorp.com to host a gallery of my painted miniatures, all of my painting reference documents, an online store, as well as a blog to post additional thoughts that don't fit neatly into these videos. So if you need a website for any reason, why not check out squarespace.com today for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Dana Howl for 10% off your very first purchase of a website or domain. So when I first received this portable kit in the mail, it looked something like this. You can see it comes in a number of different boxes, and that's because this thing is totally customizable depending on what you want to do with it. Essentially, you buy the portable case first, And then you buy each different shelf or module individually depending on your needs. They even have a virtual designer on their site, kind of like IKEA has for some of their furniture sets where you can customize the kit. But moving on, let's take a look at the assembly process of this thing because it is a hobby kit in both senses of the word. You need to first assemble it and build it like a model kit before you can use it to store your hobby supplies. The core box is an MDF kit which comes with some metal and plastic hardware, and I found the whole thing to be pretty fast and easy to put together. If you ever built IKEA furniture or even any medium difficulty Lego sets, you're going to be able to put this thing together just fine. Assembly mostly uses screws and bolts, so you will need a screwdriver, but also I was impressed at how much this thing uses magnets in ingenious ways to fit itself together as well. There's a lot of magnets involved in the assembly. You're also supposed to use wood glue to put this thing together, but I was a bit lazy and didn't use wood glue, and it still went together just fine. I should probably go back and glue it together at some point, but I've been using this for 3 months and you don't even really need the glue, to be honest. For the drawers themselves, though, you definitely need glue. Each drawer comes flat packed and is made of MDF, just like the larger box. But unlike the larger box, you can assemble each drawer with just a hobby knife and some wood glue. I didn't have any wood glue, so I used tacky glue, and that seemed to work just fine as well. You'll also probably want a damp paper towel to wipe away the excess glue if you want that nice, clean, finished look. Assembling the full kit, as well as all the drawers I got for it, took me a little bit over 3 hours, I would say, and it was a pretty relaxing and chill process. But then again, I am the sort of freak who likes to put together IKEA furniture. I find that to be a relaxing process, so your results may vary. So that's all well and good, but what you probably really want to know is how this thing actually performs in the field. And honestly, it's quite good. This thing has been my daily companion for about 3 months now, and I can say it's performed pretty well within that time, and it's definitely met most of my needs. Essentially, it's kind of an upright briefcase with a carrying strap on top instead of on the side, hinges on the sides, which are double secured by magnets, and I was surprised this thing doesn't open on me. It's only secured by magnets and a bit of friction, but it's never once opened on me during transport. Very impressive. And on the inside, we have a system of modular drawers, also double secured by magnets, that can be used for various purposes. Pretty straightforward, but the craftsmanship is really there. I really like that from a design perspective, it has this sort of real minimalist IKEA almost feel to it. Beyond this, there's a lot of details that I really appreciate and discovered sort of slowly as I used it. For example, the larger drawers just happen to be the exact dimensions of a standard Games Workshop plastic sprue, making it easy to carry plastic sprues with you. There's also a slight indent between both sides of the cabinet, which is the exact right measurements for carrying a sort of medium-sized cutting mat. And I found it also fits the instruction manuals for Games Workshop assembly instructions quite well as well. So they've thought about the dimensions you might want for various things, and I really appreciate that. The basic case costs about $80 and comes with 2 drawers, but all of the extra modules are quite cheap, around an average of like $10 each. Some of them are as low as $7. One of them is as high as $20. We'll get into that one later. But I like that you can really customize this based on your needs. You don't need to buy any shelves you know you're not going to use, and you can slowly buy extra shelves for it over time as you use your case and you find out which ones you like most. The basic drawer comes with dividers that I pretty much never used because I use these drawers primarily for my paints, and I found that each drawer fits up to 34 Army Painter bottles, 24 of these coat d'arms or P3 style pots, 22 Pro Acryl bottles, or 18 GW pots. Which for me, having 2 of these drawers honestly felt like more space than I needed to store my paints, so I would often store other things in these drawers as well, such as accessories for my painting handle or those little measuring cups, things like that. And for a lot of people, I assume this would fit your entire paint collection if you're not a freak like me who has hundreds of paints. They also have these larger drawers, which are the same as the basic drawers, but double the height. I got 2 of these, and I use one to carry around larger supplies like my glues, my water glass, my painting handles, stuff like that. And I use the other one typically for holding sprues or any other large objects I want to bring with me. There's also this extra thin drawer, which can be used for a variety of purposes. I bought 2 of these and I only ended up using one of them. I tend to use mine for work in progress assembly stuff and as a container to carve off mold lines on top of to catch all the little plastic shavings, and I just clean this out every week or 2. But this extra thin drawer also fits this thing they call the work in progress insert, where you can like store Gundam style sticks if you're like spray painting sticks or doing sub assemblies. I didn't ask for one of those to test out because I didn't think I had a use for anything for sub assemblies like that, but for some of you I'm sure that would be useful. One of my favorite types of trays they have is the one with the steel tray insert. This thing is like the other drawers, but it has a steel bottom designed for transporting models with magnetized bottoms. This is one of my favorite features of the kit because it means you can double use this as an army transportation case as well as a portable hobby kit. And for that reason, I think it's very likely that in the future, I'm going to order like 3 or 4 more of the steel trays so that I can use this to transport my army or my skirmish warbands to different games and stuff. I really like the idea that all the drawers are super modular, so you can use different drawers depending on what you're doing that day and keep the rest of the drawers at home. There's also this thing they call the multifunctional insert, which is quite interesting. This is the most expensive drawer you can buy for the thing at $20. And it has a little compartment where you can store something, like I like to store my knife and clippers, but it's also magnetized so you can clip it to the side of your kit to hold your model instructions. I found it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to most of the time. I just put my instructions up against the drawers when I wanted to use it, but it is a cool concept. And the other cool thing about this is you can magnetize it to the top of your kit and use it to hold a small tablet or a phone. So it's kind of like a place you can have a little video if you want to watch something while you're painting. I've used it more for that, honestly. I found this accessory was not quite sturdy enough to hold my iPad, which was a bit disappointing, but a standard phone fits fine, and probably an even larger phone or a smaller tablet would also work fine. And finally, they have a brush holder accessory, which you can get. I didn't get this one because I chose to get the even larger brush holder, which also has room for a wet palette, which they also sell. This insert takes up both sides of this little space at the bottom of the kit, and it holds both your brushes as well as this adorable tiny little wet palette, which in the last video I said I would review. Here's the review of the tiny adorable wet palette that comes in the Hobby Zone Portable Hobby Kit. So I really like this feature. I like that the wet palette fits into the hobby kit and I don't have to bring it with me separately. It's airtight as far as I can tell. It has never spilled on me. And my only criticism of this wet palette is that it is rather basic. The sponge isn't anything special. The papers are pretty basic, but it does work for what it's intended for. I don't really blame them for not having the most elaborate wet palette possible because they're an MDF company. They don't really make plastic stuff usually. And also this thing's only $20, so you kind of get what you pay for. And it does serve its purpose pretty well. To upgrade this thing slightly, I added in one of my redgrass sponges. Check out the previous video for a review of the redgrass palettes. I just cut the sponges in half, and I did the same thing with some red grass papers to slightly upgrade this thing to have the nicer sponges and nicer papers from my red grass palettes, but the form factor and the size of the Hobby Zone palette, and it works honestly perfectly as a mini palette to bring with me. I really like that it fits inside. I don't have to carry it separately like I used to have to do with my original portable kit. I also really like that there is this tiny amount of clearance between the top of the wet palette and the shelf above it, which I found was the perfect amount of room to store an additional mini cutting mat. So all told, this kit fits 2 cutting mats if you're really clever, 1 full size and 1 mini one, which if you buy the ones that I bought, these fit together perfectly to make an even larger mat, which fits perfectly in front of the hobby kit. So these mats aren't sold by Hobby Zone. I just happened to find these and they were the perfect size on Amazon. They come in a set of 2 and I've linked them down in the description. I would say these are the first essential upgrade for this kit if you are thinking of buying it. Beyond this, there are a few other upgrades that I got for this kit to make it even more deluxe. But before we get into that, I first want to get into my criticisms of this product and maybe some suggestions for Hobby Zone to improve it in the future. Number 1, the biggest downside of this product that I found is the weight, as this whole thing can get quite heavy when full. And this is maybe the biggest downside of it being made of MDF, as there's not really a lot of ways around that. Wood is heavy, as it turns out. And if you fill this thing up with paints and accessories, it's extremely heavy. Despite this, I was impressed to find that the handle never slipped out or broke, and the magnetic clasp that holds this thing together never once opened on me mid-transport. So that was super impressive. But yeah, I would say the weight of this thing is an issue. It's quite large, and I wouldn't recommend walking any significant distance with this unless you take a lot of stuff out, unless you're carrying like maybe less than 10 paints with you. Around the house, I found it was fine to like move it from room to room or up and down several flights of stairs. So this definitely would be an issue if you don't have a car. Thankfully, I finally got a car this year, so this weight issue isn't really an issue for me. But if you are the sort of person who maybe lives in a city like I used to, and you want to walk extended amounts of time with this thing, that's probably not gonna happen. So if I lived in a place where walking was my primary mode of transportation and you want to carry this thing, like I said, with a full load, I might recommend maybe some sort of a fabric kit or a smaller kit that can fit in a backpack. This might not be the kit for you if that's the case. Some suggestions for the company to help address this is maybe like if you could make some sort of a cloth backpack that would fit this thing, that would totally work. This is definitely the amount of weight I could carry on my back, just not vertically in one arm like a toolbox, if you know what I mean. I've actually been looking for a large square backpack that would fit it, but I haven't found one yet that is the perfect size. I'll let you know if I do. But even more ideally, what I would love to see from Hobby Zone is a case that is half this size, either vertically or horizontally. I think I would like one that's horizontally half the size. It just has half the drawers, and maybe you could put a longer shoulder strap like a messenger bag or a purse. That would be perfect for me in terms of what I would need if I want a more walkable case that would carry less stuff but could still fit all of my essentials. I would especially like to have a smaller version of this kit to recommend to people. And for someone like me, I would love to keep the larger version for main use and then have a micro version where I could just take the same shelves out and put them in the smaller case if I want to go walk somewhere with it. I think that would be perfect. I would love an all-in-one system like that. While we're at it, if you're listening, Hobby Zone, I would love to have like a little shelf I could put on my desk that fits all of my extra shelves, so I can kind of dock the shelves I'm not using, and then whenever I want to go out, I'll take the shelves that I want to use, put them in the portable case, and go. So those are my two main suggestions for new products if you wanted to expand this range. However, one of the upsides of the really big size of this thing is that for a lot of people I know, maybe the majority of hobbyists I know, this could fit all your hobby stuff. So if you are the sort of person like I used to be, where you don't have a dedicated hobby space, hobby desk in your house, and you have to pull out all your hobby stuff every time you want to do hobby stuff, this is probably perfect for you. I don't know if you want to spend $200 on this thing if you are at that stage of the hobby, but I do think it's a good size if you are at that stage. I also kind of low-key kind of like how tall it is in a lot of situations. As some of you may know, I am neurodivergent. I struggle with eye contact specifically, so I kind of like having this wall between me and other painters when I want to socialize, so I'm not constantly having to look at them across the table. So that can be a nice benefit if you're like me. And another nice benefit of it being as tall as it is on the table is that it works great if you want to clip a light to it. So this brings us to the first major upgrade that I recommend after the cutting mat, which is getting a proper light for this thing. You can, of course, use one of the cheaper worm lights that I talked about before, but if you want to go with a stronger source of light for painting, you might want to go with something like this. I'm not sure if I would recommend this exact light, as this one specifically broke after a few months of using it when I dropped it on a concrete floor, but then again, maybe that's on me, maybe I shouldn't drop my light on a concrete floor. Currently, I am testing out this one, which is a similar light, and it hasn't broken on me yet, and it's been pretty dependable. It even works good for filming, but I will add any further thoughts I have on this light in a pinned comment. If it breaks on me, or if I end up liking it after a few months, if I remember to do that, I'll try to remember to do that. However, if you are going on a longer trip, maybe you want a more substantial light to paint by, I can highly recommend the new portable light from Redgrass. This is the more portable version of the main light that I use to film all my miniature painting footage. It's just a bit smaller, has one LED panel instead of the two, but it does seem to have all the other features such as the dimmable light, and it's pretty lightweight if you don't count the stand that it comes with. So this one comes with a clip as well as a desktop stand. And while the stand is quite heavy and maybe not the best for a portable kit, like I said, unless you have a car and weight isn't an issue, the clip works great and makes this thing a very lightweight portable light to bring to hobby hangouts. And it even comes with a dedicated bag to bring it along in. This thing isn't out on the market yet, but it will be on Kickstarter, I believe, in January. So check that out if you're looking for a more deluxe portable light. But for most people, I would probably recommend just the clip-on light, which is a lot cheaper. Or if you're looking for a light to transport around your house, maybe a simple desktop lamp with a daylight bulb might be a more affordable solution. Another huge upgrade for this portable kit that I got, it's very simple, very cheap, is to just get yourself an airtight little Tupperware like this. And I use this just as my painting water cup, but it's super useful for it to be airtight so that where I'm going, we don't have water, we don't have a tap, you can still paint and just bring your water with you and not worry about it spilling into your kit. So I highly recommend that as well. So that's about it for today. That is my ultimate portable painting kit and how I like to use it for painting on the go. Links are down in the description to every product I think that I mentioned in this video and where available. I've also provided Amazon affiliate links, so I get a little kickback if you are going to buy any of those things on Amazon anyway. Let me know down in the comments if there's any other portable painting products you want to see me review in 2025. I'm really into this whole portable painting thing right now, so I would love any suggestions you might have, and I would love to include those in future updates to my portable painting kit or future reviews I might do next year. As always, thank you to all of our wonderful, generous patrons for their ongoing support, and today I would especially like to thank Vault Boy, Anthony Little, and Bill Cowan. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.